What up, everybody? You're now tuned into Candid Conversations. I'm your host, Brandon Lampley, back again with another live stream today. And man, we got a good one today, man. We're gonna get a little serious today. We're gonna keep it light, but we're gonna talk and be very informative, and hopefully, you guys can get something very good out of this. Pass it on to your father, your brother, your uncle, your son, whoever this can help, today. But I got a special guest today. Introduce yourself to the people, my brother.
So I am Marrix Seymore. I am the author of The Urgency of Knowing 10 Things Every Black Man Should Know. And it is my honor and privilege to be with you today, Brandon.
I appreciate you so much for joining. Give me a little bit of your time. So man, we're gonna get right into it, man. We're gonna talk about the book you wrote. What was your inspiration behind it? And how did it come to be?
Sure. So, in short, I am a former dean of education at an HBCU in mid-Missouri. And during that time, I had the privilege of mentoring young men who were going to go into the education field. I found that, like me, a lot of them were first generation college students. And so, there was no directions, and some had no thought or to a certain degree of where they were going in life. Like most of us, we'll figure it out. But I learned that, during that time where I had with them, there were just some life lessons that these young brothers had not been taught. Making some mistakes that if they had known better, they would have done better. If someone had said go left, they wouldn't have gone right, and the like. And so what I did was I started capturing things that I thought, gosh, what else would I tell my own sons, or what would I tell those that are charged to me, that would make their lives better. Lessons that I learned, that I had to learn the hard way in some cases. What could I share with them? And so I started compiling those things that I thought were important for not only a Black man, but someone from the Black family. But these young men were going to get ready to go out into the world. But before they could go out into the world, they had to manipulate the college experience. And some of them were, like me, came from backgrounds where this is how you survive. You carry yourself a certain way, you speak, walk, talk a certain way for survival. Well, some of my guys hadn't made that transition, that you're not in their environment anymore. And you don't have to do it this way. And more importantly, there is a way to do things in a different environment. But before I could finish the book, I had to come to had have come to Jesus meeting with myself, where there I realized there were some things that I had not taken care of within myself. I still had some mental baggage. I still had some triggers that could be pulled at any moment. Even with a PhD, I still had some things that I thought I'd handled and I didn't. And so I had to take some time, step back and deal with them. But then as a result, we came with these 10 things. And again, these are not exhausted. These are not the only 10 things that Black men should know. And I'm not devaluing the experiences of other groups, but I'm nearly 53. And the one thing I do know about is being a Black man. I have a little experience in that, and my intent was to share. The book is written. The book is written in very, very conversational language, um, and it is intended to start conversations. I didn't want any brother to think about, gosh, do I have to have a PhD to read this book? And it's not. It's very, very conversational. And then I'm also finding that mothers who are buying the book are now using it as a way to have conversations with their sons. Like me, there are many that were raised by a single Black woman. And there are some things that even the best single Black mother can't teach a young man, a
Right.
Black man. And so I tried to capture those things. Again, not every single thing that he needed to know, but those urgent things, those most important things, that he needed to know. And again, it is true that what we know will help us, but what we don't know will hurt us. And so
Yeah.
the things that are captured in this book are those things that I found most urgent right now, especially in our culture right now, where not everything is painted to make us look good. Um, I intended to have young men read this book wherever they picked the book up, whatever paragraph they read, and saw that they were being celebrated in this book. Now, there are some life lessons. There are some things that I share in the book where I had to say, dog, you just messed that up completely. And this is the way you should have done that. And I wanted to share that with others. I wanted to share in the book that with all of us, when we think we're in it by ourselves, the truth is we're not. Every black man has gone through what we're going through. He is going through what we're going through, and we'll go through what we're going through. And the
Mhm.
message is, you're not in this alone. But it's our culture, it's our nature to group up, to hang out with each other, because that's how we learn, and that's how we grow from the village of warriors.
Man, I'm all for that. I mean, I've been talking about that since I started my podcast, and I got off of because I started doing this. I started doing sports, and I branched out into other topics. One of the shows I did was I talked about masculinity and how it's at an all-time low in this country.
Mhm.
Period, regardless of what race of man that you are. And like you talk about with black men, especially black boys, it's like I said, we lack direction, and the image of the black man today is, if you really want to be honest, it's not a great image. We don't have a great image,
Sure,
and it's funny that our image nationwide isn't great, but from man to man, day to day, and the black men that I come across, especially older, I've been meeting some great black men, and that my image of black men that I've learned over these last 2 years or so, I have a totally different image than what has been broadcasted to me up here for years,
sure,
conditioned to think
sure.
that my brothers are, they're just terrible people. We're criminals. We're baby daddies. We're all these things, but they didn't tell us that we're fathers. We're nurturers. We caring for one another. We're self-sufficient.
Mhm.
Doctors. We're lawyers. I mean, it's so many great things that we are, but like I said, the media pushes a certain image, and we do play into it
Sure.
a lot of times.
Sure, sure, sure. And that's the thing that I really want to stress and punctuate, is that power of the narrative. Those who control the narrative control the story. And just as you were saying, Brandon, the narrative has been portrayed in one way that even individuals in our own culture start buying into it. So imagine what someone outside the culture who's been told that this is what black men are about. They're mean and they're angry all of the time, and they're uneducated and they're uncivilized. Imagine what other cultures are thinking if that's all they've been fed for generations. And understand that that was the intention. Someone says, "Oh, the justice system is broken." It's not broken. It's the way it was designed.
Yeah.
But I want our brothers, especially our younger brothers, to understand and to know how the system is set up. So not to just stand on the sideline, but to get in the game and change the game. And again, the best way to keep you out of the game is to make sure you never learn the rules of the game. Just like you said, in the last 2 years, you've also probably seen how many facts have not really been facts in
Mhm.
terms of history and who did what and where did what get started. There's a lot of new truths that are being discovered. It's nothing brand new, it's just been hidden from our knowledge. And so the idea of this book is to help us to understand that it is okay for you to go within, to search yourself, to find out who are you, where'd you come from, who's your granddaddy, and what did he do. Unfortunately, a lot of us have been fed these misnomers about our fathers who weren't there, but we weren't
Mhm.
told why he wasn't there. We weren't
Yeah.
told about the systems and structures that were in place that forced him away from our home.
Yeah.
I've always been taught that there's three sides to the truth: your side, my side, and the truth. And a lot of
Mhm.
times we don't get the full story. And I always share with my mentees, when you're be careful of how angry you are at your father, because you have
Yes.
now practiced 18 years of that. Whatever you're
Mhm.
angry about, and if you're not careful, you're going to become that because you've practiced it over and over. It's been in the forefront of your mind all of these years. And so you've got to know that if you keep feeding yourself that, that's who and what you become. And I say that from experience, that you've got to know who you are, but you've got to not just know it, but you've got to appreciate it. You know, we come from a strong culture. Our history did not start at slavery. It was
Yeah.
interrupted by slavery. Our rituals and our customs, when we gather once a year for a family reunion, that's not just because we had nothing else to do, but that's how we function as a culture. Yes, we laugh and we like our music and we like our barbecue, but that's a part of our culture. And there's nothing wrong with embracing your culture. We
Yeah.
have a long legacy of strength and resilience, even before those terms became popular. That's who we were. We've gone through several iterations of change in life, and we always stood up. And it's important that our young men, that our young brothers understand that that's not an accident. That's who we are. We're built for this. When every time the stock market crashes, we don't go jumping out of windows because we're stronger than that. We're
Yeah.
more than that. We know that when the chips are down, okay, let me get the chips again. Let me start all over again. What is it? When we're tossed lemons, we make lemonade. We were making lemonade before they started planting lemon trees. So that's no big. It's who we are. And so this book is designed to cause the reader to go within himself, to do this mind check, to make sure your mindset is right. And in each chapter, you have to make a decision to do something, a decision to stay where you are or to do something about where you are. And the first thing that you have to make a decision on is your mindset. Are you going to maintain the mindset of who someone else says you are, or are you going to change your mindset, adopt and adapt your mindset to a growth? To are you going to say, wait, I may have come from, but I'm going here. I can do this and I will do that. And each chapter forces the brother to go within himself, and it charges them to do something. You can't sit still. And everywhere in this book, there's some kind of life application for a brother that reads it.
Oh yeah. Man, I talked about, I did a show Monday, and I talked about we talked about, double standards between men and women. And in that show I talked about, said, if you've never gotten your dad's side of the story, you got to go get it.
Yeah.
You have to go get it. You have to go get it, because like even with my dad, being, angry for so long about him not being there every day,
Mhm.
what I did was, as I got older, and he started, as my dad, he got older, I wouldn't say he got softer, but he was always like a rock, a stone, like this pillar
Mhm.
of stoicism. He didn't show much
Mhm.
emotion. Now he's opening up, and I get to see who he really is, and I'm starting to understand that he was just a kid, man. He was
Mhm.
just a kid.
Mhm. Mhm.
He was a kid without direction, and he did the best that he can do. Was he perfect? No. Did he make mistakes? Yes. But he's still here guiding me to this day, and I appreciate him so much for it. But changing your mindset, like you said, is everything. Because if you're always in a victim mindset, man, you're not, man, you can't move forward at all.
Right, right. And and it's funny that you mentioned that, because that mindset, it's a trap that doesn't let go. Like, you literally have to make the decision to open that trap and walk out of it. It is so easy to constantly say what someone did or did not do for me, to me, through me, but the work comes in when you do it yourself. When you make the decision to make change in your life, the expression is, "Then, my son, you become a man." But as long as you're
Mm,
sitting there, my pops didn't this and my pops didn't that, you're feeding into that trap, and if you're not careful, it feels like it gets tighter and tighter and tighter. And as I said before, after 18, 19 years, now that very thing that has trapped you and you've put all of this attention on, now you become that same thing. And if you're blessed to have children, what do? You do what you know. You do what
Yeah.
you've practiced to do for 18 years. And as you alluded, you got to go and find the truth. And sometimes that truth is not always what we thought it was. Sometimes
Mhm.
it's painful to, pull the scab off of a sore that it took a long time to heal. But
Yeah.
there is no rest better than the rest of knowing the truth.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And you have to forgive, And I think what's most important, forgiving others, is what it is, but you have to forgive yourself,
Sure.
because if you don't forgive yourself and the mistakes that you make, it's gonna be a never ending cycle of you blaming yourself for everything. I mean, there's no progress if you're constantly beating yourself up about things that you made. It's done, it's gone, it's the past, it's yesterday, and you need to move forward.
Sure, sure. So, yeah, and it's funny that you were mentioning that. So, I wasn't reared by my biological father. I had a grandfather, uncles, and my godfather, very strong figures in my life. But they remind me, and I mentioned this in the book. You've read about them, the Maasai tribe and the
Mhm.
customs of the warriors in the Maasai uh, village. And the custom was the all of the warriors gathered together, and they always talked about what was going on in the village, what was going on around the village, those things that might be a threat. And they as they came and went, they always greeted each other with the translation of "and how are the children?" And when a warrior asked a warrior that, the response was, "And all the children are well." But be careful of not of missing the point. When one warrior asks another warrior, "And how are the children?" He's asking him, warrior to warrior, have you done everything you can to make sure that not just your children, but all of the children are safe, that the widows and the elderly are taken care of, that the village is safe, that you've done all that you could to protect and provide for the village? And the response was confidently, if they've done so, and all the children are well. And as a result, young men looked up to the warriors, and they practiced being warriors, and they hid behind the trees while the warriors talked, because they wanted to learn how to be a warrior. And as their practices would go, in order to become a warrior, you were sent out into the jungle with one spear, and you had to kill a lion, bring the lion's head back as evidence that you killed the lion. Obviously, if you didn't come back, the lion got you first, right? But they practiced even how to approach a lion, how to outthink a lion, and they got it from the other warriors. Well, you got to know that a warrior still has to worry about, is he the best warrior he could be? So the conversations went on within the groups of warriors. And so for us, it's important for us to understand becoming a black man is not something where there's a book. I have 10 things, but it's not the end all discussion about how to be a black man. It requires that we congregate with each other and we talk about the cares of life and the troubles and the challenges of becoming a black man, and how to contribute to our culture, how to contribute to the larger society, how to show up in a room as a proud, productive black man. That comes from conversations, and I want your listeners to understand that it's not good enough to just stay out of trouble. It's not good enough to just mind your own business. That's not our culture. Our culture is, when we get there, we reach back and we grab someone else, and the cycle continues. And so, whatever we're thinking about ourselves, know that it's a cultural thing. We are as strong as the warrior that was ahead of us, and as strong as the warrior behind us.
Man, well said. Say, let's check some of these comments. They say Dwight Fallen
Sure.
says, "What we know will help us, but what we don't know will hurt us." Yes, sir. Say, yes, sir. You're not in this alone. Say, so true. There are so many great things. We are well said. I said, you become what you keep feeding yourself. Yes, yeah, you do. I said, Mom said, yes, so true. They say, stay where you are or do something about where you are. Yep.
Mhm, mhm.
And as Lisa say, the truth is subjective, and each parent will have their version. Yes, yeah, they will. They will have their version. And
Mhm.
it's funny you talk about protection. One of the things that's got kind of like taken off. I always see it, the hashtag protect Black women. And the way I interpret it, is not the way, a lot of them, I guess, who started it meant it. They say, we should protect our Black women. Yes, you're right, we should. But that doesn't mean that me as a man protecting random women on the street. And I was telling some people, I said, protect Black women to me means that the Black women who are in my life, those are the women that I need to protect. Now, am I going to stand idly by if something's happened to one that I don't know? No, I'm, go through the proper channels and call the proper authorities. But Brandon's sacrifice of his life is reserved for those closest to him. Because if something happens to me while dealing with somebody else, are they going to protect those women in my life? No, they're going to move on with their lives. So that's why I tell guys, when it comes to protect Black women, yes, protect those Black women that you cherish the most and that are closest to you.
Well, and again, Brandon, I appreciate your perspective on that. That comment it came from a place, again, of culture and responsibility to the culture. So, of course, you can't take care of the village if you're not taking care of your house first, right? Your
Yes.
first ministry in anything is your family. But
Mm-hmm.
the foundation to that comment is, as a member of our culture, you have, just like you have a right to the benefits of the culture, you have some responsibilities to the culture.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes, Brandon, your responsibilities to protecting the culture is, if you just handle your house, if you keep
Mm-hmm.
your house in order, if you provide for your house, that's less of a burden on the culture. If you just do your part. But now, if by chance you take care of your house and the house next to you, she's there without covering, without support from a man, then reach out to your sister, because, as you just mentioned, in your absence, that could be your mother or your sister
Yeah.
needing that same support. And so, when and we've got to be careful of not of discounting or devaluing what it means to take care of Black women, because in the reality, Black women have taken care of us. It's a part of our culture. Yes, and Black men have had to deal with a lot of things in this country, but opposite of a Black man having to deal with the Black female, who wasn't designed to be the hunter and the
Right.
gatherer. She wasn't designed to be the protector. She was the nurturer. She's the one who sat and listened to our craziness, where our fathers weren't, who could not get it. But if she's got to be the protector and the nurturer, her back is uncovered. And so that comment
Yeah.
is, just make sure her back is covered. Make sure that she's not walking out there by herself. There was a conversation on social media about this young lady who was a PhD, and another young gentleman from another culture refused to speak to her with her title, her earned title, and he
I
was
saw
insistent
that.
on it. And this whole idea about protect the Black woman, in that virtual audience were other Black men who did not come to her rescue in that moment. And
Mm-hmm.
that's what that comment is: protect the Black woman. Here's this woman who's earned her stripes, and someone else is not giving her due respect. And so another brother that looks like me could have easily just stepped in. And this is Seymour. I don't own the rights to that interview, but in that instance, here was an opportunity for a brother. Doesn't mean that it was his wife or his daughter. Here was an
Mm-hmm.
opportunity for a brother to protect a Black woman. And when that doesn't happen, when other cultures and other entities see that a Black woman is not, that a Black man is not going to instantly come to her rescue, they'll try it again and again and again. And before you know it, that woman becomes your sister, or she's your
Yeah.
mother or your aunt that someone is disrespecting because a Black man did not come to their rescue.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Now, especially in those cases, guys sitting on that panel, yes. I mean, you have to step up in that case. Yeah. Oh yeah. Because it like you say, it starts with us at the beginning. We're first for a reason. Men protect the women, women protect the children. And we have to do those things. So I mean, it's cliche to say, but starting, you got to start with the man in the mirror. You want to make the world a better place. You take a look at yourself and make that change. And so when it comes to that, I saw that interview, and the guy, he's just disrespectful, and not wanting to acknowledge her and her title, what she's achieved. She put in a lot of time to get to where she is, for you to sit and call her Miss by her first name. Like, no, that's not what we're going to do. But in that instance, and the way you broke it down, I'm glad you broke it down that way. You are absolutely correct. In that instance, yes, we have to have our mothers, sisters, daughters back, because at any time, that could be, let's say that's my mom. My mom, become, she was on some interview and she has this title, and people refuse to acknowledge her by that title. I would have a huge problem with that.
Yes, absolutely, yeah. Absolutely.
Oh yeah. So these 10 things. So let's talk about these 10 things.
Sure. So the design, again, as I said, the book is designed to be very casual and on a conversational level. So if a brother picks the book up, wherever he picks the book up, because of the way we're wired, there's a message. But even if someone's mother, a mother of a teenage son, or nephew, or the like, would pick the book up, it becomes a conversation piece. And so the design of the book it starts with examining ourselves mentally. Where are we mentally? What's our mindset about ourselves? And it challenges us to do something about it. But then it goes from the head to the heart, and then it goes out to the hands and our feet, meaning it goes from how we feel about ourselves to how we think about the world around us, and then what can we do in the world. And so the first couple chapters start with, understanding how to change your mindset. But then it goes into understanding who you are. And I'll pause there and say that like knowledge is strong, perception is even stronger. And if my perception about you is stronger than your perception about you, my perception is going to win. You're going to begin to receive and believe my perception of you. And so the book challenges the reader to make sure that their perception of themselves, regardless of who thinks what about them, make sure that you know yourself. And in knowing yourself, know your culture. Know the truth about your culture. Know your heritage. It's important that whether your grandfather was a steel worker, or whether he was a college graduate, or if he only earned was blessed to earn a third grade education, it's important that you know who they are and how did they overcome the challenges that were presented to them. Because again, this is your lineage, and the way they handled their business will also become how you handle your business as well. But it also talks about understanding legacy, that whole idea of what was it that your family, your relatives, your loved ones did that made the greatest impact in the community, in the world. That becomes legacy. It's your charge to find out who am I? Where did I come from? Unlike the narrative, we weren't hatched and we weren't born to swinging trees, or we weren't left on door curbs. We came from someone with a last name. We came from someone who had rituals and their language and their beliefs. If you think about it, I'm not sure if you've had an opportunity to read the first version of Roots, but the things that were attempted to that the slave owners tried to take away first was their rituals and their name and their language, because that's what made them who they are. That's what makes us who we are. And so I encourage the reader to really examine themselves and ask the question, who am I? Know who you are. And I use that as a slogan that I have, that I've got shoulders and so do you. And there's a program that I started where the simple message is I didn't get here by myself. I had to stand on someone's shoulder to get where I am. But now that I am where I am, I've got to now square my shoulders for someone to stand on my shoulders. And I'm teaching them that they've got to do the same over and over again. And from there, it goes on to a myriad of discussions that talk about something as what some would think is simple, but is major, like conflict resolution. And I share in the book several real stories. Most of the examples are my own experiences. But with this one, with conflict resolution, I talk about a time where I was away at college, and there was a conflict with my roommate. And I didn't handle it well. I didn't handle it well at all. I said the wrong things. I did the wrong things. And by the time I got to the end of the conversation, I felt, like nothing because of the way that I handle it. And the person that I was in conflict with, oh man, this could have gone a whole totally different way. Like I didn't even have to be sitting here in front of you today based on the way I handled it. And so in the book, it talks about, yeah, there will be challenges. There will be things that we want to question, that we don't think went our way, or that we were disrespected in some way, but there is a way to handle. And as a parent of adult sons, my lens is I want you to get back home. We can talk about
Yeah.
the rest, but I want you to get back home. And so in the book, in a couple chapters, we talk about, standing up for yourself, but how do you do it? Responding to authority, but how do you do it? And a lot of that comes from being taught how to, throughout the book. It's just those little nuggets and lessons that I want you to know them before you need them, rather
Yeah.
than need them and don't know. And as I shared with you earlier, some of my mentees only had one way of communicating. And that was that way, to survive in the hood, that way of getting along to get along. And it wasn't required in a different environment. And until they learned that it was that you handle yourself in a different way in a different environment, I don't want readers and I don't want young Black men to continue being misunderstood when there are some things that we can share with them from the previous generation, on how to manipulate and move throughout the world and stand and represent, show up as proud, productive Black men.
Oh yeah. My mom always say, "Should don't hold court in the street. You know, do what you got to do to get back to me so I can advocate for you.
Right.
You know,
Right. There you go.
because I've always been, pretty much a big guy. So I've never been poorly perceived as a child since probably my teenage years. Same with
Sure.
my little brother. He was 5'10" at like 12 years old, So we've never been seen as children, and they don't see us as children on the street. But
Correct.
when it comes to, and I believe this, that when it comes to especially young men, um, if you don't grow up with it in the house, you're going to seek out other sources. You're going to seek it
Okay.
out from other places. You as a young man, you crave masculinity.
Mhm.
It's funny how even without father figures, you always find men, who kind of replace that void. So either you teach yourself or you piece it together from different people as you go along in life, and you make it the
Mhm.
best you can, and
Mhm.
kind of teach yourself. But regardless of what happens, we always tend to seek it out.
Sure, sure. And here's one of those knowing things. I don't want your listeners to walk away and think that that's the wrong thing to do. It's our
Mhm.
natural tendency at a certain point in our lives, and you can attest to this. We get this air in our chest, we want to kind of buck up to things, right?
Mhm.
We get this something in our head that makes us want to push the boundaries. you know our parents said be in before that light comes on outside, and we want to push the boundaries just a little bit. That's not abnormal. If you allow me to kind of go cartoonish on you, remember the Lion King,
Mhm.
when the cub was getting of age where he didn't always have to suckle with his mother, he started following his father.
Mhm.
And he started trying to roar like his father. And even when he stoops down to drink water from the river, he looks and he sees an image of his father. All right.
Yeah.
No matter how much his mother loved him, she could not teach him to be a lion. Now, be careful because in that same movie or the same cartoon, his uncle was not the best example of of ethics. But as you mentioned, the young cub was in such a need to emulate a male. He was beguiled by his uncle because he
Yeah.
wanted to be like a male. And so in the book, we try to make sure that young men understand that swelling in your chest, that's natural. That that is a natural thing. Because you're feeling those changes in your body. You're pushing the boundaries. You're testing the waters. And if there's not another man there to quote unquote thump you back in place, you
Hmm.
feel like, okay, let me push it a little further. That's not always the best thing, because then you find, okay, mama really does have a wrath and she really will, put hands on you.
Yeah.
But I want to make sure that your listeners understand that that's a natural thing. But the challenge is, how do we control it? And then how do we find examples that are going to get us in life where we need to be? And again, as we were talking in another situation earlier, if your ceilings only allow you to see certain things, then you only strive for that.
Yes.
But I also encourage readers of the book to get out of that square, that
Hmm.
boxed in space where you only seen one thing. You know, how do you know if you're showing up in the room right if you never go to another room? How do you know if you are doing what you need to do on another side of town if you've never moved over to the other side of town? Or how do you know that the world is much bigger than your front yard if you've never left your block? And
Yeah.
so it's important for us to understand that while we are experiencing these changes in our lives and our feelings for certain individuals are changing, it's important for us to um, connect ourselves with individuals who are going to help show us the correct way to handle those changes.
All right. Right. Yeah. Yeah. You're right. You see, Dwight say, "Don't hold court in the street." My.
Street.
See, Miss Lisa says, she said, "I share the same lens. I've taught my black son how to survive in this world." Yeah, and and then especially him being mixed, see, half white, half black. I mean, I've heard some of the struggles of my mixed brothers, man, and it's hard to identify, because you seen is not black enough, and then as far as whites, you seen white people don't view you as white, so it's a tough struggle for especially those young men.
Yes,
Let's
yes,
see. Dwight Fowler says, "Get out of that square." Yeah, yeah. You got to cut the umbilical cord. You
yeah,
have to. Young black men, the black men. Period. I love my mom to death, but you have to cut the umbilical cord if you want to step into your masculinity. If you want to step into your manhood, you have to sink or swim on your own. Because if not, man, it's it you're limiting yourself, because like you say, that mindset, not knowing that in this space right here you have to go along to get along, but when I get somewhere else I got to operate a totally different way.
mhm, mhm. Well, if you don't mind, I'd like to go back to the parents' comments about teaching her son to survive, and
Yeah.
so again, I'm right there with her. My mom would, to this very day, will say the exact same thing. But would you believe me if I told you that the end game for a man is not to just survive? He should thrive,
Thrive.
meaning that he is in control of his capacities. He's in control of his next steps. Um, um, his life has been divinely ordered, but he's got to make some decisions, not to just survive, but how to thrive and how to be able to live and not be ashamed of what he's done, not and be comfortable in his own skin, in his own space. And so, in order to do that, one thing is to survive. If that's the floor, that's fine. But then how do you thrive? And it becomes the responsibility of the young brother to say, okay, where do I want to go? And if I don't know where to go, let me just sit at the feet of brothers who've done some things in life, whether good or bad. listen to their mistakes, learn from their errors. Now, where do I want to go? The mistake that we often make as young black men, young men of color, is that sometimes we have this perception that no one else understands what I'm going through. And keep in mind that there have been brothers that went ahead of you. There are brothers who are going through it right now. And if you're not careful, they're going to be going through it after you go through it. Why not learn from those that have gone ahead of you? You don't have to do things the exact same way, but watch how they did what they did, why they did it, and what were the results. And then you've got to ask yourself the tough questions. Is that the same path that I want to follow? If it's not, make sure that I don't do any of these things. But if it is, then I need to reach out to that brother or brothers like him. Okay, so man, how do I get out of high school going through what I have to go through every day? Or how do I know if college is for me? Why not the military? You don't talk to someone who's not gone to college or has not gone through the military about those two career paths.
Yeah.
Imagine how many people have who stood on the side. I call them coulda, shoulda, woulda people. They have all of their advice, but have never gotten outside of their box. They've never taken a risk. They've never, as Steve Harvey says, they never took the leap or they never took the jump. But they can tell everybody else. Connect yourself with someone who has taken those risks, who's took the leap of faith, who's tried it, have failed, got up, dusted themselves off, and started all over again. Those are the ones that will teach you the lessons of life, not those individuals who are always talking. We won't be remembered by just our mouths, but we'll be remembered by our hands. What do we do to change the world? What do we do that will make some young man say, I want to be just like him? And brothers, if you find that person, pattern your life after them. I promise you, they'll be too glad to share with you their mistakes, their challenges, so that you won't go through the same. But keep in mind, you cannot live this life by yourself. In fact, it's difficult living with someone else walking through life, but imagine trying to do it by yourself. It's going to be impossible. And you'll find yourself constantly sitting in your front yard. I wish I had gone out the gate. 45 years old. I wish I had gone out the gate. 55 years old. I wish I had done this. You have time. And even for my brothers that are my age, you have time to go in a totally different direction than you're in. You're not in this thing alone.
Yeah. Yeah, man. Let's see. Do I say connect with someone who took the leap? Yeah. You don't ask fish how to catch fish. You ask the fisherman. Period.
Right.
And like you said, I've come across, so many older men who they've done it all. They're from, their careers, a lot of them retired, they're set for life, and they impart, any chance I get to just have a simple conversation, I'm all ears, because I mean, even though I'm 32, but I feel like it's just starting for me. Like, I don't even feel like I've scratched the surface of what my potential is, this is the beginning, and that's one thing about being a man. It's so funny. You feel like you don't have enough time. Like, even me being 32, when I turned 30, I was like, 30 was like, yo, you're a failure. You got to get it together, man. You're way behind. This person got this, that person got that. This person is doing this. You need to get it together. But then as I got, as I went on, I realized, I say, wait a minute, not to go achieve and take my time, but I have time, At any time, you can change your vocation. You can change your outlook. You can go back to school. You can get education. You can do all these things. You do have that time, but it starts with you opening the gate and leaving the porch.
Absolutely. Imagine what life would have been if someone had told you earlier that, man, in your 20s, that's when you're going to just try it all. You're going to just see where your hands fit. Today you're chasing this direction. Tomorrow you're trying to find what fits. And what is it? You're stacking your paper and you're getting the purse. If someone had told you that, then if they had told you, but by your mid 20s to late 20s, okay, now that fast roll on the hamster wheel, you start to slow down, and now you're a little more focused on, okay, I think I'm narrowing it down from 20 different things to 10 things or 5 things, in some cases one, and you're focusing on that one. And then in your 30s, that's when you really start settling, putting roots down, and you're building that family, or however you decide to, what family looks like, but you're establishing yourself. You're not chasing yourself anymore. If someone had told you that, by the time we are in our 50s and 60s, we are prepared to sit back and see the fruit of our labor. But so many of us didn't get that story.
Yeah.
Yet that in our 50s and our 60s, we're still trying to find ourselves. That
Yeah.
no one told us, okay, here's what's going to happen when you turn this around this age. Gosh, no one told me when I turned 50 that my tolerance level would be so much lower than it was back in my 20s. But no one told me, that what you could do then, you definitely won't be able to do now. But imagine if we understood life that way,
Hmm.
if we understood what it meant to be a Black man and what to expect, not everything to the letter, but in general, what to expect. Imagine how productive, how more productive we could be in our lives. Rather than spinning our wheels, we're now moving it on a system that we designed for ourselves. Man, I suspect even now, by the time you're 40, you'll be conquering the world one mountain at a time, because you found it, you found you. And so I'm hoping that your listeners will do the same. And for those who haven't, again, I encourage you to reach out, because again, there's a brother somewhere that has done this already.
Yeah.
They have the battle scars to show for it, and they're too glad to tell you how not to fall in that same hole, how not to fight that battle that's not even yours.
Hmm.
um, but it becomes our work as
Yeah.
as men to reach out. There is
Right.
no fame and glory in staying in the dark by ourselves.
Right.
You don't get a crown, you don't get an extra jewel in your crown in heaven because you stayed in the dark in ignorance.
Right. Oh yeah. Let's see. Miss Lisa say life is a journey. It's not about the destination, but what and who you become along the way. That's it. That's it. Now I will say, for you to say that you're tolerant, the way your tolerance is set up now, dude, my tolerance is low now. So you tell me it's gonna get worse? Like that's crazy to me. Like my tolerance is low now. I thought I went to my brother and sister one day. I said, "Yo," I said, "Dude, if I just become mean, is my tolerance? I mean, like my patience is like thin." It was like, yeah, I mean, I guess it's just with age that like when you see it and you want it done a certain way, or somebody's doing something and they're not doing it the way you want to do it, you kind of just like, But that's where restraint comes in, holding your tongue, knowing that everybody don't move at the pace you move, and accepting those at whatever speed they go, accept them at that speed,
Sure, sure.
and then as well, talking about especially young men, seeking out that information. There's always someone willing to help. And I would say, not even for my young guys, for the older guys who are looking to mentor, for these young guys, I know the young men they're a little different today. They're a little different. Someone can be very impatient, but I would say that, as the older man, which, you're saying sometimes lack patience, to have a little patience with them, because even the ones who seemingly don't want to listen, or they're bullheaded or whatever, even the ones I have, who I've mentored when I've mentored, like, especially teenagers, even the
Mhm.
ones who seem like they didn't listen, or they were bullheaded, or they were hard headed, they've come back, and guess what they say? I appreciate it. He said,
Sure,
and
sure.
you find out that they were listening to the things that
Mhm,
you had to say to them.
mhm, mhm,
So
mhm.
just,
If you think about
yeah,
it, as I said before, some brother has gone through this before. Someone's going through it. No matter how old we are, if we are privileged to get to an age of, especially my age, I still don't. I haven't forgotten what it meant to be an adolescent turning into a teenager. where I felt like nobody understood and the rest of the world was wrong and I was right. I don't forget those 20s where I made mistakes in life that were so, in my opinion, so bad that I could crawl under a rock and never come out again out of embarrassment. I don't forget all of that. I don't forget thinking I knew everything when I didn't know much of anything. Um, but I also remember how the men and women in my life stepped back and gave me a little space to come into my own understanding. Like, you don't know everything. Yeah, that was a mistake, but you get up from mistakes. So, and I said all of that to say that as a person who's gone through it, I understand. As other brothers who have gone through it, they understand what you're going through. They
Yeah.
really do understand, and we know when to step back, and we know how to read that language that says, I need you to come a little closer. I don't know what to do at this point. And so I was sharing with Dwight earlier that, every generation goes through the same thing. When I say the same thing, those challenges of life. And in this generation, this is that generation who may not, they understand there are some things that I need to know. There are some
Hmm.
things that I was not taught, that I was not exposed to. And I want to know, I just don't know how to ask. I might not say it right. I might not carry myself in a way that demonstrates that I want to know, that I want to do better. And so I need for the older brothers to see themselves in me and help me with the questions that I don't know how to ask, and see themselves in me and help me overcome the obstacles that I don't know what to do with. And so again, for you, you're coming into that age where you're becoming more and more focused, and your tolerance is not, you're not giving a lot of attention to people who are not focused as you are right now. But even for guys like me, we understand the stages that younger brothers are going through, and it becomes
Hmm.
our challenge to not forget. Now I'm
Yeah.
not going to say that all of us are perfect, um,
Yeah.
because sometimes we need to be reminded that we didn't do everything right.
Hmm.
That the college program that should have lasted 4 years lasted 5 years, and it wasn't by accident. You did some things that we shouldn't have.
Hmm.
Just a narrative that we didn't. We're not perfect, but we do remember. We do understand, and it is
Yeah.
our job to not forget that.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Let's see. See, Dwight says great dialogue tonight. Yeah. Yeah, man. It's funny because I woke up one day and I was like, I'm going to start doing this. This is what I want to do. I'm going to start doing it. And the only thing that kept me from doing this for so long, and I think it's with anything, regardless of what you want to do, fear.
Mhm.
Fear will paralyze you. Fear will stop you from doing so many things, man, because being afraid and thinking, being afraid of what others think. And one of the most freeing things, it's like a weight was lifted off of my shoulders, is when I realized that for most things in this life, people don't really care. If it doesn't serve them, they don't really care. It's all this, all these movements. A lot of it is fake outrage because people, at the end of the day, don't really care.
Mm, mm. Wow. And I challenge you to, and your listeners, I challenge you to be those that care,
Yeah.
to care for yourselves, to care for your families, to care for your community. I challenge you, in 10 years, if someone comes along and says, no one cares, I want them to finish the sentence by saying, but Brandon,
Yeah.
or but one of your listeners. And I was sharing with another group of guys that, I was on the tail end of that generation that said that, if you work harder, you get further in life. I was on the back end of that. Well, you guys represent that generation that works smarter to
Yeah.
get along in life. And I want you and your listeners to understand that whatever that it is, you have it. You have it
Mhm.
within you. Whatever that something is that the world needs, you have it. I want to challenge you to be smart about using that it to change
Mhm.
the world. You know, with the Black Lives Matters, that was the it factor. Smart enough to change the world. Protesting and speaking up, not just talking loud and saying, a lot of noise, but being smart about it. Having the planning meetings, the strategic planning meetings, and talking
Mhm.
about what happens next and what happens this, or having those meetings that talk more about economic development in the community. That's what you guys are doing because you're smarter. You work smarter to move along in life. And so I'm going to challenge you to continue to do what you're doing, and continue to be smarter. Because even what you do, you can change the lives of people like me to help me think smarter than always trying to work harder.
Oh yeah, and that that speaking of especially older black men and technology, I mean that's comedy in itself, man. But I love helping and I love teaching, because and once you show them how simple it is, oh, that's what it was, and they get it, they get it right away.
Yeah,
I was
yeah,
talking,
yeah.
talking to my uncle one day, and I was telling him, I said, I said I believe that time is on the loop, man. Time is cyclical. It's
Mhm,
time is on the loop, and things just continue to repeat itself. Because that old saying that those who don't acknowledge history are doomed to repeat it, and
mhm,
that's exactly what we're doing. We're repeating cycles every single day. I mean, that's what we're doing. One of the things that ails us, especially in our community, is the fact that fathers were removed from the home, and then on top of fathers being removed from the home, they've attacked masculinity. They're one of the buzz sayings of the day: toxic masculinity. I mean, they've overused that so much, and they vilified things that were just regular masculinity, and they've made it toxic. It's
mhm,
funny, if that masculinity doesn't serve whatever their purpose is, it's something that's toxic. And you got to understand, you got to let our young men know that being a man, you got to be proud to be a man. I'm proud to be a man now. Before, I was like, I thought I had a bad view of men. I did. I wasn't
mhm,
proud to be what I am. But today, I can say that if I die today, I want to come back as a man because I'm very
mhm,
proud to be a black man and be a man.
And again, that is the difference between knowing what a man is and not knowing.
Yeah.
And if you make the choice, and I'll say that clearly, if you make the choice to remain ignorant about it and depend on the definition of someone else about your manhood, your masculinity, then you'll remain in that space. But when you make the choice to explore who I am as a man, as a black man, you will discover it. I'm far more than what the narrative has portrayed. I'm far more than even what I thought of myself. And that's almost like an incurable disease. Once you get it, you don't lose it because you want more
Yeah.
of it, and you go after more of understanding who you are, and it becomes so dangerous that it's contagious because
Yeah.
then those that are around you they're going to want whatever it is that you found. Okay, I need some of that too. And so yeah, again, that whole idea of perception, make sure that what you perceive about you is much larger than what others perceive about you. Because if not,
Yeah.
their perception will start guiding your behaviors and your thoughts and your actions and reactions to life.
Yeah, yeah, yes, it will. And when others start to dictate who and what you are, you lose your total self, man. You
Sure,
do. You lose your total self. You know.
sure.
Yeah, yeah, man. Man, we're an hour in already. See, the conversation goes, man. It just goes, man. But yeah, man. So like, okay, so we'll close it up. And then in closing, you know, I guess, basically talk about any upcoming projects that you have, and where people can find you on social media, and any, closing thoughts that you might have.
Sure. So first, I'll like to thank you for having me to share this space with me, and for me to learn from you. So thank you, Brandon. But then also, you can find the book, "The Urgency of Knowing," Um, 10 Things Every Black Man Should Know. Of course, it's on Amazon, but you can also go to drseymour.com. And there, I will send you, you order it there, and I'll send you an autographed copy of it. You asked about other projects that are coming up. So when I wrote this book, I think I shared with you that I wrote it for my college mentees who were an age of 18 to 21-ish. What I'm doing is two things. One, I am writing a workbook to this book so that brothers can get together and talk about what this book means to them, how they can transform their own lives by connecting with another brother. So they'll read the book together, work through the workbook together, hold each other accountable. But I'm also going to write a younger version of this book for middle schoolers and early high schoolers with a curriculum to it. And so I am on most of the, in fact, I'm on all of the social media outlets. I'm either Dr. C101 or Dr. Marrix Seymore on any of them. You type in last name Seymour, Seymore, and it's going to come up, all of them. And so if you would just follow me there, we'll see what great things are coming out.
Man, yeah, man. I appreciate you for just giving me a bit of your time, man. It means so much to a young man who, for so long has doubted himself, for so long, didn't take things, just didn't take life serious in general. With the things that didn't necessarily interest me, brain threw it away, and, and I'll challenge anybody, young or old, it doesn't matter. The barriers, breaking down the barriers that you put up, for yourself. I talk to people all the time, and I tell them, I was like, when I was younger, I felt like, I had a terrible memory. Like I couldn't remember things, I think it manifested itself over into other parts of my life. Family would tease me, telling me, boy, you can't remember anything, but then I started, doing content creating, I started doing audio first, talking about sports, sports was, the passion, because, ever since I can remember, I wanted to be on ESPN or Fox Sports and things like that, but once I started doing this, I started to see where my talent truly lies. Mm-hmm. And as I started to do it, I was like, man, it's crazy. I never really looked at it, but I think I may have a photographic memory, I was like, because I can recall stuff that, man, I haven't seen or read or listened to in forever, or I could see something once and then spit it back out a couple weeks later, like I just saw it, that day or right then. And so when I realized that, I said, okay, well, sports is going to be the footnote in Brandon's story. I said, we got to take this into other areas and other arenas, and we got to put our hands in everything we can. So it come across this desk, I'm getting into it. It doesn't matter what it is. You're going to see if I can, this space is going to be everywhere, because that's the goal now. I'm no longer have boxed myself in and kept those barriers up that I had built for myself. You have to break those barriers down as a man.
And and that excitement, that zeal, that aha moment that you had, that's what I want for all Black men to have those moments where they realize, wait a minute, I am worth it. I'm enough. In fact, I'm more than enough. And so let me put my whole self into my whole self. It is my desire that Black men understand that they are so significant that other parts of the world want to keep us suppressed. Yeah, we're not just angry Black men. We're intelligent, smart, and wise. We're strong, but we're mentally strong as well. And it is so urgent that you know that I want to, like you, I want to tell everyone, anybody that'll stop 5 minutes to listen, that it is important for you to know who you are. It is important for you to know that you have a responsibility to your community. And the only way that you can be all you need to be for the community is first by being all you need to be for yourself. So again, Brandon, thank you so much for having me.
Man, I appreciate you for joining me. Hey, people, remember to like, share, and subscribe. You see all my information down at the bottom. Hey, man, I appreciate you so much for this, man. This
Absolutely.
this this
Absolutely.
this makes me feel good, man. Hey, I think got a live probably coming Friday. You guys are gonna break down this NFL draft coming up. Trevor Lawrence is coming to town, people. I can't wait. Jaguars are getting them a franchise quarterback. Hey, I'm never gonna shut up. Y'all did the wrong thing by giving Trevor Lawrence to the Jaguars because Brandon Lampley ain't gonna shut up about it. I'm telling y'all right now. Yeah, man. But hey, we're gonna sign off, man. Until next time, and hold on for me, Doc. Hold on for me. I'm gonna sign off the live and we'll talk. But until next time, you guys, I'll see you later. Peace out.